This region around the Great Lakes has been called the heartland. When it comes to agriculture, there's hardly an area in the world that compares.
Everybody, just hold on. I don't know what we're going to have here.
That's what brings the viewers back. That a boy.
Manage money, piling in.
Double digits higher.
So at this point, we're in kind of uncharted territory.
There's a lot of money on the sidelines.
So that was a crazy one.
Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, July 23rd, and this is the AgYield War Room. Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area. We'll be sure to get to it during the show. Quickly here, overnight markets at September corn up 3/4 at $4 even. August soybeans were up 5 at 10.15 1/4. And September Chicago wheat was down 2.5 at 5.47. No export sales announcements here this morning, so we'll jump right in. I think the big news headline here is a new trade agreement that was announced late on Tuesday with Japan. And I know we'll dig into that here a little bit and kind of what that means as we go forward. And then I think the one of the only other things I saw here this morning was that all the weather models were in agreement out for the 2-week forecast, getting a little cooler, I think, than originally anticipated. So here again, we've talked a number of times about the lack of trust that we've had in long-term forecasting this year. But at the same time, I think the market did recognize that some of that heat got taken out. So with that, Justin, maybe share a few thoughts after you took an initial look at this Japan news and I guess what it means, because there was certainly some rhetoric there relative to agriculture. So I'll get your thoughts here this morning.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're already, one of the top, call it 5 trade partners in most major commodities that we export. So to be honest, I don't know what it means. There are, so it's not negative. Obviously it's somewhat positive. Markets are kind of muted over it, I think because they're already such a big importer of things, but I think it's just positive in general that we're chalking up some deals. I know, we've chalked up several now. Obviously the big ones are still, China, India, EU, some of those bigger ones that we have to kind of hammer through, but it's positive. I mean, Japan's a huge strategic partner, both with trade and obviously their location. So it's obviously positive. But as far as, is it going to turn our markets around? Probably not at this stage.
Yeah, I thought one interesting piece was the 75% increase in rice purchases. Overnight, rice caught a little bit. So I guess, and some of those, I'll call them like ancillary products,
right.
It's more on corn and beans, but
yeah, right. I mean, yeah, corn, they're already a huge buyer, they're going to buy what they need to buy. So yeah, nothing major there in my opinion. Yeah, obviously good for rice. It's a very small market, as far as we're concerned, but definitely good for the rice producers. And I'm sure there's some benefits to meat, and they'll continue to buy a lot of corn, but I don't know if it's enough to turn us around right now.
Sure. Dustin, thoughts this morning?
Yeah, I think it's it takes a little bit of the edge off of corn. At least it may not necessarily be a wildly bullish thing for corn, because there's no like minimum purchase agreements like we saw with like some of the other deals. But at least we're not going into an actual trade war with Japan where they're just not buying any of our corn. I think that was between Japan and Mexico. One of the concerns we had is if we lost access to that because they were digging in and trying to fight this, then that would have been one of the headwinds for corn prices. So other than that, though, I think we're going into that time of year where we still have pretty good weather. Forecast appears to be very favorable in the next couple of weeks still. So that might be why it's muted as well too. It's like, well, it doesn't matter if we're going to be projecting an above trendline yield. It's not really likely for us to find demand to take us out of this with what we know today.
Yeah. Ben, what's on your mind?
Well, not too much. I like what Dustin said about it. It probably takes a little bit of the edge off corn, helping get that trade deal done. I think it puts starting to kind of line countries up around China. We talked about that before the open. Looking at beans, that's one that I think is a little bit more interesting at the moment. They've tried, managed money's tried to sell it. They haven't not gotten momentum through. Maybe they're just holding some premium in there until August turns out okay, if that's the course of action. But it's back up overnight, traded back to its 50-day. It's above its 200-day, and it's been kind of whistling back and forth through these areas. So I think that bears watching. As far as the timing of this goes, we're still a fairly long way off from gut slot corn harvest. So I think getting that next, whether it's 20 or 30 cents, I think it takes a little bit of time if that's where we're going to wind up heading, because we have this monster crop. But we still have, we're talking with a commercial partner yesterday. They felt like that where the crop was at in the east, that we would not see gut slot harvest until middle of October. So if you look at the overall fundamental underlying picture of corn, we've got to stretch that tight carry out a little bit further till we start to really get overrun. So I don't know. It's a nothing market right now, is what it feels like to me, until we take out the lows. Corn's still on a weekly reversal. Bear markets love to spit reversals out. So, there's my disclaimer.
So Ben, to that point, is that correlate with a big corn crop? Pushing that gut slot?
It gets a little bit behind in the east from later planting. And I think it's wet, and people are going to be, somewhat, it's going to take a little while to dry down and to peter out with the weather forecast, unless we flip back to the model that we saw 4 days ago.
Yeah, it's usually putting on bushels late, right, is good for a big national corn crop, if that's kind of what people are thinking, which I wouldn't disagree with right now, right, with the weather we've had.
Yeah, I mean, that's, but to do that, you need August through mid-September to be kind of cool, wet, to really pack the bushels on. And that's kind of the big question, right? So, I mean, I was thinking about this driving in, July is the most important month for corn. I mean, but that's the most important month to get that, call it 75 or 80% of yield. To get those really big bushels, you have to finish strong. You have to have nice, cool nights. All those different recipes that we saw, 1994, 2004, those really big years, you got to finish off strong. And I think that's why, beans are reluctant to break, because no one has an idea on beans, as in every year, until you get through August. There's some ratty looking beans, there's some really good looking beans, but I haven't found a person yet that can accurately predict the bean crop size until you really get in there and can count pods, and that's in September. So
don't you think it's kind of a big weekend for beans then, going starting to peek into August weather?
Yeah, I think so. And again, you'll have, beans can look like crap and then be record. They can look great, look like, end up crappy. So beans
it's almost bearish when you hear people say beans look horrible. Like, oh,
I know. It's like, oh God.
Okay.
Yeah, they're probably, yeah, exactly. So beans are they're just so hard. But yeah, I mean, I think you get, you start getting into next week, end of next week. If the forecast looks good, beans will probably start breaking down. I mean, right now to Ben's point, they're just hanging around. All these moving averages, if you look at them, they're all within a 9-cent range right now between the 25-day and the 200-day.
Jeez. Right.
That shows you how, range bound we've been. So they're just looking for direction, and if it I mean, I think you have to be 100% open-minded in beans of what yield could be. It could literally be anything right now. And corn, right? I think that's the problem with corn is you've gotten enough rain now where you can take a disaster off the table. And now we're just trying to fine tune whether it's, I'll call it a 175 to 190 range. I mean, it's still a huge range, but you've taken out the disaster play probably. Where where beans could still be anything. So that's, I think, what we're dealing with.
Well, very good. We'll we'll move quickly over here to livestock. Rye, fresh contract highs in the feeders, and it was pretty mixed in the hogs yesterday. So I guess what are your thoughts now? Is it seeing a Japan deal and how that reflects in your markets?
Right. Yeah. I mean, just, still notching new highs in both places. But yeah, I mean, this Japanese trade deal and the Philippines, I mean, obviously Japan's, one of our largest beef buyers. So overall, it's definitely going to be seen, I think, as kind of longer term supportive if this does kind of go the way I think everybody's expecting it to go. So it still feels like the market's going to be cautious here with the discount on the board, just, continuously making new highs just to see how cash really starts to pan out. I mean, we do have a cattle on feed report on Friday. Market's expecting on feed at 99, placements at 98, and market at 96. So we'll see how that kind of shapes up. I think just overall, it seems like the Packers are still going to have to bid, and the cash outlook this week is steady to possibly steady firm. So once again, I imagine trades likely to pick up ahead of that cattle on feed report. Probably some bids rolling out today. So I imagine that all the news that we've seen from trade deal wise so far, even with the Philippines, still seems pretty longer term supportive. So just more of the same, really. Just no bad news here, as it were. But yeah, on the hog side of things, once again, Japanese trade deal still seems supportive in that regard as well. So yeah, just kind of a mixed trade yesterday, but a new high for the move, the highest level in 2 weeks. So I mean, I think this little spark that we've seen back in the cash market, expectations for supplies to stay still relatively tight, it's really kind of holding us up, and it just feels like we're getting priced relative to beef too on the carcass side of things. So even though we did see a little bit of a washout in bellies yesterday, down a little over $4, cash was up almost $4. So it feels like we've got this little push and pull, and it feels like the market wants to hold up right now. It's just we're kind of getting to that point where we need to see carcass kind of keep staying pretty stable here, and I think to hold things up for now. So no, all's good news, I think, coming into the day here on the meat side of things.
Very good. I appreciate the update there. One thing to note also, tomorrow morning, 7:30 Central, we'll have weekly export sales. So we'll take a look at that report and then visit about that in the war room. We appreciate everybody that tunes in on a daily basis. If you wouldn't mind, throw us a like and certainly subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything to do so. It'll keep you up to speed on everything that's going on with AgYield. So again, thanks to everybody that supports and watches the show every day. We're doing this live every day that the markets are open on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. 8:15 Central Time. I appreciate the thoughts and comments here this morning, guys. It was a good show. Hope everybody has a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.
The War Room is proudly presented by AgYield. For over 50 years, the AgYield team has provided grain marketing and risk management solutions for growers across the country. Our veteran consultants harness cutting-edge technologies to pinpoint risk, optimize market performance, and protect your farm's profitability. Discover a new approach to farm revenue management at agyield.com.
Hey guys, Jack here. Be sure to support the show by hitting the like button, leaving us a comment, and subscribing to the channel for all the latest updates. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.